Good evening and welcome to the commemorative area of the Australian War Memorial for this special last post ceremony. My name is Tom Rogers. Shortly, a current serving member of the Australian Defence Force will read tonight's story. We would like to acknowledge the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who continue to watch the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the Australian National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Now we will hear the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century.
Good evening. My name is Warrant Officer Class 1 Kim Owen, and I am currently serving with the Australian Army. Today we remember and pay tribute to Private William Jack Scully. Commonly known by his middle name Jack, William Scully was born in Darwin on the 14th of March 1919. The second of 8 children born to James and Sarah Scully, who worked on Willaroo Station in the Northern Territory. Jack Scully grew up on the station with Bill Muir, a boy about the same age who had been taken on by the Scullys. In the late 1920s, the Scully family was advised by police to move to Darwin so that Jack and Bill could go to school. As James and Sarah both had Aboriginal heritage, they were fearful of losing their children to the notorious Callan compound and half-caste home. Well known for its appalling living conditions, the children at Callan had been removed from their parents in order to integrate them into the white community. In order to avoid this, the family moved into a house in Daly Street in Darwin. As Scully and Muir grew up, they began playing football for the Buffaloes Football Club. During the 1930s, the Buffaloes were the standout team, and their rivalry with the nearby Waratah Football Club was legendary. Jack also played Australian rules football for the Vesties team. On the 19th of February 1942, Darwin was bombed by Japanese aircraft and 252 people were killed. The Scully family was evacuated inland to Pine Creek. Some family members, including Jack's mother and 2 brothers, Edward and James, travelled to Brisbane. While in Brisbane, Edward and James enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. Jack Scully travelled to the small town of Adelaide River, where on the 28th of February 1942 he was mobilised for full-time service with the militia. After initial training, he was posted to 39 Defence and Employment Platoon in Darwin, where he and his unit were responsible for building defensive positions to protect against further Japanese attacks, as well as being engaged in construction and maintenance tasks in and around Darwin. In mid-August, he was transferred to 28 Employment Company and continued to work on new buildings and repairing existing infrastructure as the attacks on Darwin persisted. Returning from 2 weeks' leave in early January 1943, Scully transferred to 29 Employment Company based at Shady Glen Camp near Winally. Shortly afterwards, on the 28th of April, Scully enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. By this time, he had a misdemeanour on his service record. He had been discovered asleep during sentry duty on the evening of the 8th of March and had been fined as punishment. On the morning of the 20th of June, 21 Japanese bombers and similar number of fighter escorts began the 55th bombing raid in the Darwin area. At around 10:45, after running a gauntlet of heavy flak and 46 Spitfire fighters, the Japanese bombed Winally and surrounding bases, causing heavy damage. Scully was hit by shrapnel in multiple locations. He was rushed to Fortress Camp Hospital but died from his wounds the same day. He was 24 years old. His body was laid to rest in the Birramar War Cemetery the following day. His remains were later reinterred in the Adelaide River War Cemetery. Scully's brothers, Edward and James, survived the war and returned home in 1945. Jack Scully's name is listed on the Roll of Honour among more than 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Jack Scully, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for watching and wish you a very good evening.